desperate would you have to be to throw nearly $100 million at two players from the very teams that have tormented your franchise for years? Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are about to answer that question in the most audacious way possible, and what they're planning could either be the masterstroke that finally delivers a Stanley Cup or the most expensive mistake in franchise history. The double bombshell that nobody saw coming while most NHL fans are focused on the obvious storylines heading into free agency, the Maple Leafs are quietly orchestrating what could be the most shocking offseason transformation in recent memory. We're not talking about one big signing. We're talking about a complete roster overhaul that involves stealing talent from their biggest rivals. The first bombshell comes from NHL insider Frank Saravalli, who believes Toronto is seriously exploring a move for Florida Panthers defenseman Aaron Ekblad. The former first overall pick just completed his 8-year, $60 million deal and was instrumental in Florida's back-to-back Stanley Cup victories. But that's just the appetizer. The main course involves NHL analyst Paul Bissonnette dropping an absolute nuclear bomb on his Spittin' Chiclets podcast, claiming that Brad Marchand, yes, that Brad Marchand, who has tortured Leafs fans for over a decade, is already agreed to a 4-year, $36 million deal with Toronto. If both moves happen, we're looking at nearly $100 million in commitments to two players who know exactly what championship hockey looks like. The Aaron Ekblad pursuit. Stealing from the champions, let's start with the Ekblad situation, because this move would represent everything the Maple Leafs have been missing for years. Frank Saravalli didn't just throw out a random speculation, he specifically said everyone has spent a lot of time wondering what Aaron Ekblad might look like in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform. That's not casual speculation. That's insider knowledge being shared publicly. Ekblad brings exactly what Toronto desperately needs: proven championship experience, physicality, and the kind of playoff pedigree that can't be taught. At just 29 years old, he's entering the prime years of his career with 2 Stanley Cup rings already in his possession. His recent numbers tell the story of a player who knows how to contribute when it matters most. Despite missing time due to a suspension, he still managed 33 points in 56 regular season games, then elevated his play in the playoffs with 13 points in 19 games during Florida's championship run. AFP Analytics projects Ekblad to command a 7-year deal worth $7.8 million per season, which would represent a significant investment for Toronto. But here's the key. This isn't just about adding talent. It's about adding a winner who understands the pressure and intensity required to capture championships. The emotional farewell that says everything what makes the Ekblad pursuit even more intriguing is what happened during Florida's championship celebration. Despite spending 11 years with the Panthers, longer than he's lived anywhere else in his life, Ekblad gave an emotional message to fans that left many believing he was saying goodbye. That's part of who I am at this point, Ekblad said. I've spent 11 years here, and that's more than I've spent in any home or city in my life. So it's home, and I expect it to be home. Conversations have been had, obviously nothing material yet. But here's the kicker. Ekblad revealed that his agent specifically told him not to repeat what Sam Bennett said during the celebration, that he wasn't leaving. That omission speaks volumes about his actual intentions and the likelihood of a departure from Florida. The Brad Marchand bombshell that changes everything. If the Ekblad rumors were surprising, the Brad Marchand reports are absolutely earth-shattering. Paul Bissonnette claimed on Spittin' Chiclets that he received information from a very reliable source that Marchand to Toronto is already a done deal at 4 years, $36 million. I got a message from someone very reliable. I heard rumblings that it is already agreed upon for times $9 million for Brad Marchand, Bissonnette said. That would be unreal. That would be a culture setter. What makes this even more credible is that NHL insider Nick Kypreos independently reported similar information, stating that Marchand will be signing with the Maple Leafs on July 1st. When 2 separate, respected hockey insiders are reporting the same information, it's not coincidence, it's intelligence. The Marchand factor. From villain to savior, the psychological impact of signing Brad Marchand cannot be overstated. This is a player who has absolutely tormented Toronto for over a decade, accumulating 58 points in 59 games against the Leafs and 37 points in 35 playoff games. He's been their kryptonite, their nightmare, their most hated opponent. But here's the beautiful irony. Marchand revealed, after eliminating Toronto from the playoffs, that he actually grew up as a Leafs fan. "I grew up a Leafs fan, and I enjoy playing against the Leafs," he said. The idea of him putting on a Toronto jersey represents the ultimate redemption arc. Marchand is coming off an 8-year, $49 million deal that was widely considered below market value. At 37 years old, this is his last chance to cash in on a career that includes 2 Stanley Cup championships and a reputation as one of the most clutch performers in playoff hockey. The proposed $9 million per season would represent fair market value for a player who just posted 51 points in 71 games and followed that up with 20 points in 23 playoff games during Florida's championship run. The roster mathematics that make it work from a salary cap perspective. These moves become possible because of Toronto's expected departures. The Leafs are widely expected to lose Mitch Marner and potentially John Tavares as well. Those departures would free up significant cap space that could be reallocated to proven championship contributors. The defensive situation is more complex, as Toronto currently has 7 defensemen under contract. However, Frank Saravalli reports that Brandon Carlo has appeared on trade boards, with the Leafs potentially willing to move him for forward help. This would create the roster space necessary to accommodate Ekblad. The championship DNA that Toronto desperately needs. What makes both potential signings so compelling is the championship experience they bring. Between them, Ekblad and Marchand have 4 Stanley Cup rings and countless playoff battles. They understand the pressure, the intensity, and the sacrifice required to win at the highest level. This isn't about adding talent for the sake of talent. It's about adding winners who can teach a franchise how to win. The Maple Leafs have been talented for years, but they've consistently fallen short when the stakes are highest. Adding players who have been there and done that could be exactly what breaks their championship drought. The social media tease that confirms everything, perhaps the most telling aspect of the Marchand rumors, came in his response to Nick Kiprio's report. When Leafs fans started buzzing about the possibility on social media, Marchand himself commented on Instagram, "Expletive dog, the people want to see it?" That's not the response of a player who has no interest in signing with Toronto. That's someone who's enjoying the speculation and potentially confirming what insiders are already reporting. The cultural transformation that changes everything if both signings happen. We're looking at a complete cultural transformation for the Maple Leafs. Gone would be the narrative of a soft, underachieving team that wilts under pressure. Instead, Toronto would add 2 players known for their playoff intensity, their willingness to do whatever it takes to win, and their proven ability to deliver in clutch moments. Bissonnette put it perfectly when he called Marchand a culture setter. Sometimes franchises need veteran leaders who can show younger players what championship commitment actually looks like. The $96 million question: here's the reality. If Toronto signs both Ekblad and Marchand to the reported contracts, they're committing nearly $100 million to 2 players who are past their physical primes, but still in their competitive primes. It's a massive gamble that either pays off with a Stanley Cup or becomes an expensive lesson in free agency mistakes. But given Toronto's championship drought and the pressure from their fan base, this might be exactly the type of calculated risk they need to take. Playing it safe hasn't worked. Conservative moves haven't delivered. Maybe it's time for the Maple Leafs to go all in on proven winners. The final verdict on franchise-altering moves. The Toronto Maple Leafs are apparently tired of being close, but not close enough. If these rumors prove accurate, they're betting that championship experience trumps youth, that proven winners are worth premium prices, and that sometimes the best way to beat your enemies is to make them your teammates. Aaron Ekblad and Brad Marchand represent everything Toronto has been missing: playoff intensity, championship pedigree, and the killer instinct that separates good teams from great ones. Whether these moves actually happen remains to be seen, but the fact that credible insiders are reporting them suggests there's real substance behind the speculation. Sometimes the most impactful moves are the ones nobody sees coming. If Toronto pulls off this double signing, it won't just change their roster, it'll change their entire identity as a franchise. What do you think about these potential bombshell signings? Would adding Ekblad and Marchand finally give the Leafs the championship DNA they need, or are they overpaying for aging veterans? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit that like button if you think Toronto is about to make the moves that finally break their Stanley Cup drought.